So let me introduce who we have on stage here. So Bruce, to my left, Senior Associate and with Teaching Science and Technology. He develops technical courses for the space domain with current focus areas in satellite design and cybersecurity. He previously had a distinguished U.S. Air Force career and 20 years at Boeing Space. He's the Vice Chair of the Industry Relations Committee. Kat, next to him, is Deputy Manager for Lockheed Martin's Deep Space Exploration Advanced Programs, where she leads a team in research and early spacecraft development efforts. She's most recently been working on system architecture interface development for returning humans to the moon. Next, we have Maria Antonietta. Maria Antonietta is Director of Thales Alenia's Space Economy Exploration International Network. She has been program manager of major ESA activities related to Moon and Mars exploration and is an active leader of the IAF and is also a vice chair of the Industry Relations Committee. There you go. Next, we have Angelo, Executive Vice President of Strategy International at American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. He develops and sustains AIAA's international collaborations with government agencies, industry, and global organizations. His leadership at AIAA for over 20 years has also included serving as COO. And on the end, we have the local, who I asked, and he did drive here instead of the rest of us. Sean is founder and CEO of Shoal Group, a systems engineering firm focusing on complex, technology-intensive projects in defense, space, infrastructure, track record of developing advanced technology initiatives such as small SATCOMs for Antarctica, unmanned aerial systems for the Australian Army, and digital engineering for spaceflight safety assessments. So with that panel assembled and your questions, we're going to talk about AI governance. So first, I will kick off with something a little overarching. How is AI changing the current or near-term nature of the space-based economy? And I'll go to Kat first, but it'll be a free-for-all after that.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. I'll kick it off, and we'll see where it goes from there, right? So I think from a near-term and current perspective, currently we actually have already started to institute really more of an autonomy into some of our spacecraft, and I'll talk a little bit about an example here. But really, right now, I think it's really enabling operations of some of our spacecraft that are previously limited by computation, right? So one recent example, at least from our Lockheed Martin Deep Space Exploration Group, is the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. So that was actually, we utilized something called natural feature tracking, which helped us to tag the asteroid and ensure that we got the right sample. We also developed digital twins of both the spacecraft and the asteroid environment. So that actually helped us to increase our situational awareness and help the operators on the ground to make those informed decisions that they needed to make to ensure that we were actually able to achieve the mission objectives. I think really from a near-term perspective, I think we can imagine this future where data is integrated across different platforms, systems of systems, increasing that onboard and multi-systems autonomy, but also aided by cognitive assistants that are helping to execute that mission, but also keeping the humans in the loop a bit there to help them make informed decisions that are needed for that particular mission. So who wants to go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick thought. Certainly, we have Thales and Lockheed Martin and myself as former Boeing up here. There used to be big barriers to entry to becoming a satellite manufacturer. And a lot of those barriers have fallen away. There's a lot of new entrants here. And in terms of near-term impact, I think maybe AI is another one of those things that's reducing barriers for new entrants and new innovation and new regional startups to start, especially as we're here in the APAC region. I
Absolutely.
think AI might help open doors for new entrants. So,
No, in fact, I was going to complement what Kat rightly said, that in fact AI is really entering as a tool all our main engineering activities. When we do plan, for example, for a mission to wherever, in LEO or to the moon, we need for sure to optimize the resources and to have an AI support in doing that may in fact be a big resource saving. Not to mention, you briefly mentioned also the problem of threats. I've been dealing for the last 3-4 years with the increasing need to develop spacecraft that will do cleaning in low Earth orbit. And so to have an AI supporting the reading of, how can I say, your sensors. You know, you want to spot the satellites that will need repair, that will need refueling, whatever. And everything is dark around you. And you have all these cameras, all these sensors getting many data. But then you have to suck among those huge data what is really useful. You need to spot, yeah, I have to go there. I mean, in an automatic way. You don't have any person involved in the story. And so that is going to be
Yeah.
an interesting tool.
No, it makes sense. As space gets busier, you need more autonomy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The farther you
Absolutely.
go, the more you need it.
That as well, the time distance.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Sean, do you have something?
Thank you. I might add that to my panelists that I think that AI will, further to Bruce's point, increase the democratisation of space, much lower the price of entry, and allow more companies, more countries to actively participate. Tasks that used to require lots of on-the-ground computation, lots of people, large spacecraft, can now be done with AI assistance at a much lower price and complexity point. Pretty much every small space mission I've come across in the last 2 years has had some mention of using AI in some creative way. So it's here to stay already. It's already reasonably pervasive in what we do. So it's a good topic to be talking about. How do we govern it ethically?
Yeah. Let me go to another question. It's more practical. So how does AI affect space sustainability, logistics, long-term space-based resource use? Maria Antonietta.
Yeah, if you want, I already started to tackle this point. Again, not only for the vicinity, but even more so for when we plan for robotic mission to Moon and Mars, where we have a lot of huge problems to tackle. But for sure, resources is one of the major ones. And so to optimize the use of the resources, both at fuel level, for example, or when we will have people involved, food, water, you mentioned, one. And so to have a super smart use of those resources will be a key opening for this type of mission. Yeah. Then for sure, people are unpredictable. Thanks God. This is positive. But these years ago, we were used, old people like me, with almost 40 years in space. I remember that for many times we analyze the operations and the activities that were better to be handled by robots versus human. You remember robots versus human? Now I think that we shall look at artificial intelligence as a nice supporting tool. So at the end, the final decision will remain in people. But to have a smart secretary beside you, it's not bad.
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in on that one? All right, we'll move on to how is the increasing use of AI going to influence space economy investment levels? And I know those have been going up over the last couple of years, and certainly AI investment's been going up. Sean, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. My thoughts are investment in anything is a function of relative attractiveness. Something that's more attractive to invest in is going to attract more investment, or tends to, both as compared to what came before and to other sectors of the economy. So the question really becomes, will increased use of AI make space relatively more attractive in terms of potential returns, effectiveness of the technology, and reliability of the technology? I think that those that can show early relative advantages may benefit. However, investors will also likely be concerned about reliability and predictability of the technology. So how much we trust AI is going to be a major factor in this. If our industry can demonstrate resilience by, for example, being able to rapidly remediate problems via in-space software updates, then investor concerns will likely reduce. Assuming so, then given the promise of AI in space-related applications, I can see a scene being set for some applications that attract very significant investment and perhaps capture a significant sector of a market that delivers value across a wide client base. Think search engines and social networking starting about 20 years ago. Eventually, though, AI is just going to become a mundane and accepted part of space technology. I think it's starting to look that way now, frankly. Foundations that offers little or no differentiation. If you think of the emergence, for those that are old enough, the emergence of office automation in the 80s and 90s was a thing, and it was going to be different, and now everyone's got it, and it provides no real differentiation. And is life better? That's debatable. So therefore, I think the question is going to go away at that point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that the increasing pervasive use of the technology of AI in space ultimately will outpace, I think, the ethical frameworks that need to be built around it. And so therefore, best practices, I believe, need to keep current with the amount in which we use AI relative to the endeavors that I think, and the aspirations that we have in space. So just adding on to that point, I think it's important that we not forget, how do you keep the frameworks aligned to the increasing use of where we're headed with AI for missions, for applications in that environment.
Yeah, great point. I mean, there's enough issue with regulating AI on Earth, right? Where there's also some safety aspects, but there's even more safety aspects in space. Bruce, did you have another point?
No,
Yeah, I think-
didn't understand the answer, so no.
Yeah, Sean mentioned trust, and I think that is a key element here. Is as we go through our launch readiness reviews and our certifications and acceptance criteria all along the way, we can't just abrogate our responsibility as engineers in that process and say, well, the AI says it's okay, and so therefore we're go for launch. At the end of the day, if there's a launch failure or a mission failure in orbit, we have to go back and question all those things. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The issue of governance is going to have to keep pace with the fact that there's these new tools available, but the ultimate responsibility still rests on our ability to rely on the tools in a trusting way.
Yeah, and test. There was another AI-related GNF yesterday afternoon that many of you may have been at, and one of the questions was about how you hold AI accountable, right? And the initial answer, and then there was a better answer after that, was, well, if they do something wrong, you fire them, right? Like you would with any human. But to that point, there are real repercussions, and shutting off or firing an AI doesn't really have the same response. You really need to get to a human actor, right, behind, or a corporation or something that can take responsibility properly and understands what responsibility is. It's a great point. Keeping on that human element, interested to hear perspectives on how the space economy career, world, and I know there's a lot of young professionals out there, may evolve with the increasing use of AI.
So we really are at yet another Promethean moment in history here. And AI is driving this latest endeavor for us. And I think really where I see things moving from a professional career standpoint, especially for the young people coming in now, is we're starting to see AI, as you've heard many of the panelists say, at the core of many of the missions, many of the activities in terms of mission planning, logistics, Earth observation, and tenfold more applications for the use of AI. But it's going to really affect two specific dimensions. Really, one is the technical dimension, and the second one is the professional dimension. And I'll touch on the first topic first, which I think is quite important. The critical skills will be for us to know how to use AI appropriately, how to interpret the outputs that the AI gives us for any of the missions that the professionals are working on. And then finally, how and when to challenge the outputs and the results that come from AI. So this is a specific human factor that needs to be inserted into the process of any results that are generated from AI algorithms. And so it's our responsibility to always insert ourselves into the framework of those outputs and really question the data and the outcomes that result. The second piece of this really is the professional dimension, I think. And where we need to be as humans who are interfacing with AI and using AI, it's great that AI can take on heavy, generated, repetitive, data-intensive tasks. That's wonderful. But the human role then changes in the process, right? The human role then shifts toward more creativity. It shifts toward problem framing. It shifts toward systems thinking. And that's really where the next generation really needs to understand how they can be relevant in an AI future. It's not just your technical discipline any longer. It's really more how am I using the tools and how am I framing with the tools to be able to create the outcomes that I think are responsible. And then finally, really the goal of all of this is to successfully pair technical knowledge with adaptability and interdisciplinary skills that allow for ethical decision-making, because that really is going to be the core essential function that the human's going to be able to interact with and to push forward.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So we see an emerging new type of disciplines that should be proposed by universities for the new generation of people. So to develop this sort of critical assessment capability. So to do that, you need to be very solid on the basic engineering stuff.
Judgment,
To have a
ethics.
system, as you said, a system capability. Yes, I like it.
Yeah, you still need the
I
fundamentals,
totally
don't you?
share. Yeah, fundamental.
Yeah, so I think, Angela, what you're saying is that, yeah, we do still need those fundamental engineering skills because in order to actually understand the outputs, it's not like we don't need mechanical engineers anymore, right? I think we still need those domain system experts because even as, a systems engineer, systems architect myself, I don't know deep down into every discipline. You don't want me doing your mission analysis, right? I can do it. It'll be better if my subject matter expert does it. But I think it's having more of those people who understand those cross-cutting capabilities, the cross-cutting domain knowledge, but while still also leveraging those experts. So I think it actually comes into an interesting training capability as well. And then, of course, ties into how do we trust that the data is right? Well, it's tying in the right humans who have the right background and training.
Yeah. In practice, AI cannot replace the brain of a person. Can be a big smart computer, but still a computer.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the governance aspect, is there is an automated part of governance because the speed of AI is a bit dizzying and humans can't keep up with a lot of the segments of it. But there also have to be touch points where human governance comes in play. So it's a combination of both.
Chris, I think it's really AI is the tool, okay? We have to use it as the tool, not as the solution. It's to make you more efficient. It's to make you more adaptable. It maybe even will provide you a way to, may give you information you may not have thought of, okay? But it doesn't replace the human. It merely is your co-pilot.
But then the final decision, you said, is yours.
Yeah.
You
mean-
cannot fire a computer. But you fire
can
the
try to
person
unplug it.
that let the computer take this decision for you. Yeah.
I mean, I still want to peer review whatever my AI tells me. And I still think that's going to be valuable, right? But I think it also opens up a lot of possibilities that we didn't even think of, right? And solutions that
Yes.
can then actually improve some of our spacecraft.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time to be a young technical professional now, because it will allow you to do more, to less drudgery, more systems thinking, more architecting, more letting your mind fly with your co-pilot, not advertising from Microsoft, but with your co-pilot next to you to do some of that drudgery. The danger is, of course, you still need to understand what's being done. You have to do the assurance or arrange the assurance, and ultimately you, the human, are going to be responsible. As a couple of my fellow panellists have indicated, you can't abrogate that responsibility. But again, this is not super new. We've sort of done this before. If you grew up in the age of slide rules and whatever, we've got electronic calculators and computers, and suddenly, rather than calculating everything by hand, we let a computer do it, and we had more time to then think bigger thoughts. So we've done something like this before. It's just making sure that you can still understand what's being done, so that when you give consent, assurance, you actually know what you're doing. And that's a fundamental requirement.
Yeah, maybe I'll, if I can quickly wrap up this
Go ahead.
topic.
Go ahead.
One of my great mentors who came up during the slide rule era used to say to me, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So AI is not going to protect you from yourself if you don't know what you're doing. And it's true. If it's a hammer, a fool with a hammer can do a lot of damage, and a skilled carpenter with a hammer can make something beautiful. So if we remember that AI is a tool, it still relies on us to use that tool appropriately to create value.
Absolutely. Thank you. And of course, represented on this panel and certainly in this room is international, collaboration and aspects of doing this across really the entire globe. How is AI affecting that level of interconnectedness between nations?
Yeah, I think
Who is taking that? Bruce?
I think it's similar to what we've been saying about reducing the barriers to entry. What are the barriers to collaboration? What's standing in the way of collaboration now? And I think AI tools and AI processes have the opportunity to help provide some acceleration there. But I still think we'll see clusters of innovation happening, and I think that comes down to this issue of trust. So we'll have communities and pools of capability that emerge, but then we'll have this ability to transfer international borders either on collaborative missions or international supply chains that we already have. I think we'll have the opportunities to do those even better and even more seamlessly, provided, of course, we address this element of trust. Again, if we're expanding our international collaborations or our international supply chains, we still have to rely on the integrity and the value of those products and capabilities. And again, pointing to the AI and saying, well, the machine told me it was okay, so I'm going to ship this component is not going to be adequate. So it brings us back to this issues around trust and governance and acceptance on top of the accelerants. So yeah, I'm curious what others have to say on this.
I still believe that talking about collaboration, especially across countries, especially in these days, The human sensitivity
Yeah.
makes the difference. So it's like to have notes. Each of us has notes, but then when you want to relate to another person, you look at that person in her eyes, and then you speak. So again, as a tool, yes, maybe too easy the discussion. Maybe we will not need to, I don't know, speak another language because the computer will speak for us, and that will be good. Would be much easier for me if I could express myself in Italian, yes. But then when we come to trust,
Yeah.
when you come to rely on the other as really somebody you want to share your path with, in space in this case, the human dimensions for me is
Yeah.
much, much above computer, AIs, and, all these fancy stuff.
Right. I mean, the internet is kind of another example of that. A couple
Yeah.
of decades ago, that certainly flattened things and allows
Yes.
us all to communicate much more quickly and better. And yet we all still flew here to Sydney to have this conference, right? When we could have done it on the internet, but we've all
Precisely.
found that it's not the
Precisely.
same. And AI is probably going to be similar.
And it could create confusion. I found this, sorry, this is me always out of the writing stuff. I found this capability amazing. Yesterday, I couldn't believe that some of us were speaking and the computer was already writing
Yes.
so quickly, despite the fact that Italian people are known as a fast speaker, but people from Australia, much, much faster. So very difficult for foreign people to understand. And so it was working, but some words
Yes,
and
it's not perfect.
no meaning. So we need to pay attention. I come to the topic of this friendly discussion. Yes, AI is a tool, but talking about international collaboration, pay attention that maybe a computer could use the equivalent of a translation, not in
Right.
the proper way. And then the tone, the color, the whatever can make the difference.
Yeah, yeah. Angela, did you have something as well?
I just wanted to add on, that was a great point. I think really we have to look at this as, how do you develop this symbiotic relationship with this tool? And nothing replaces, again, we've all flown thousands and thousands of kilometers or miles, depending upon where you're from, to get here. And there's a reason for that. It's because in the end, nothing replaces what you're experiencing while you're here. And that trust is developed through people. And it's an eye to eye, it's a handshake, it's a sit down, it's a cup of coffee. You can't do any of that with AI. I mean, you could, but it'd be rather boring. But it'll just feed you back information that you want to hear. But the problem is that it's not building trust other than the information it gives you, which you ultimately end up having to question anyway, or at least validate. The interaction between humans can and should never go away because it is the basis of every great achievement we have ever we've ever created together.
Well, thank you. So over to the investment side of things, what investments in infrastructure are required for the successful uptake of AI by the space sector? And that would be, either on terrestrial ground or up in space.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one here. So I think, initially it's very similar to other applications and other domain use. I mean, you need those computational resources. Of course, in that area, when you're talking about onboard systems, what does that look like, right? We're not going to be able to put a huge server farm on a small deep space exploration spacecraft, right? Maybe we could fit one on the moon, but even then, that's going to be an interesting challenge, right? But putting aside the swap, the size, weight and power problems, we need really good test data sets. And I think, we have some really good ones from missions. But how do we also then share those data sets if we're working on international missions, right? How do we share those across different AI platforms? Also need those test environments and those mission relevant environments. And then how do we, especially if we're talking about an international collaboration, how do we then work together to actually verify that those are actually trusted, and get that mission environment maybe for, I don't know, if we want to do Artemis or whatever it may be, right? And I don't want to throw a Lockheed Martin plug in here per se, Christopher, but there are some interesting. He's not going to stop me now. There's actually there's an interesting parallel going on right now from the military application, and so they're looking at these same things, right? Because AI actually is going to be something that's utilized across every domain. But there's this thing called AI Fight Club, and it's actually this head-to-head competitive environment that the Department of Defense is looking at. How do we find the best of the best and test out some of those environments, test out those data sets, and actually find something that meets the current test and qualification requirements for AI use across different system domains. So they're not just looking at land or air or sea. They're looking at cross-cutting across the entire defense landscape, land, air, sea, and space. So, why not develop a similar environment to benefit space exploration, especially on the international level?
I might comment that I think that the rise of AI in space is going to drive associated technologies like quantum computing, and putting quantum computing in space. You need significantly increased computational resources. Quantum computing won't solve everything, but it will solve some things, and we'll see moves to get that into space quite quickly. There's already some basic work being done, but I think within the next 3 to 4 years, we'll see QC on orbit, and then once you've seen it a little bit, it'll rapidly expand where we're doing a lot of AI in space rather than having to bring things back down to Earth.
Yeah, very good. So here's a question that came in from the audience that's been upvoted a little bit, so I'll bring it in here. So what measures can be taken to prevent AI from behaving unpredictably in case of critical systems? I know we've touched on this a little bit, but anyone want to jump in on how you govern that?
Even if you inject in your procedures the final word to be human, we are learning that even the human final word can be unpredictable sometimes. So I think that maybe, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but maybe before, a crazy action might be executed in orbit, easy picture, 2 satellites, one is approaching the other nation satellite to do something that maybe is not super ethical. Maybe the really final decision shall remain in the hands of a group of people, not one person. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but the risk is big. The risk is big.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, one early area of adoption of AI, of course, is in the area of writing software, and maybe not so much in our domain because of the nature of the software that our developers write in terms of real-time operating systems and controlling cyber physical avionics and so on. But a number of people that I know who are software developers in more consumer-related things, who are writing scripts and that sort of thing, they're working at fast food places now because their jobs have been outsourced to AI. And the question becomes, and probably the risk there, if that code behaves in an unexpected or unpredictable way, the consequences are maybe not so great, right? it's easily recoverable, and maybe, it's not a loss of mission or loss of life situation.
have to reboot your
So I
Netflix?
think for us,
But if they do
you
so,
have to
maybe-
reboot your Netflix. Okay, so that's not the end of the world, right? So I think in our area, we really have to consider this. And, we've encountered things like this before. We've used autocode on very sophisticated multi-billion-dollar missions, and the software team spent a lot of time really questioning themselves of how can we consider our verification and validation activities to be complete when, MATLAB or one of these autocode generators is, we can't trace the code, we can't do a code walkthrough, we can't exercise every path in the code because we don't really know what's in the code. So I think it's kind of that problem on steroids is what we're facing. So we've faced it before in a different vein, but I think we'll have to address those sort of philosophical questions.
And a lot of that, with AI, you can test now, right? So rather than spend so much time in design, maybe you spend a lot more time in test that iterates and updates your design. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks. I think the answer is actually going to come from other fields. If you look at what is the field of human endeavour now that most involves automation, AI, humans, safety, driverless cars.
Yeah.
Right? That's a thing. Now, that's not quite, I don't think any, there's some regions of the world which have given permission for driverless cars in some limited forms, but it's certainly not a broad thing yet. But once those algorithms are worked out, once authorities trust it enough, given the nature of the vehicles that are out there, it'll become widespread fairly quickly. I think the problems with humans and AI and safety of life will get solved on the Earth, and then once they're solved there, then the same methods, techniques, and governance frameworks will be adopted in space applications to a large extent.
Well, another audience question is, do we see terrestrial AI regulations such as the EU AI Act, which is, I think, the furthest along, I'll put it that way, as a tool for ethical AI development in space, or is it more of a burden hampering innovation? So when we have that kind of regulation, is that stymieing or spurring innovation?
I'll take that one. Why do you have regulation of AI? Why do you have regulation of anything? To protect somebody or someone from some unwanted sort of consequence. On the Earth, you have regulation of AI on financial services and the like, because people don't want to lose all their money. Driverless cars, because you don't want to get run over and killed. In space, you'd have to ask yourself, what are you trying to protect from? And is that done best with some sort of external regulator, or are the actors themselves going to do that because it's their missions and their money and their objectives which will be compromised? I rather think the latter. Until we start to live in space as a species, that's a little different. That's a bit more like on Earth then. But for the next little while, I think it'll be those who are actively involved will self-govern, because they will wear the consequences of AI misbehaviour.
Go ahead, Angela.
I think when I look at regulations like this, especially in a field as young and as, I think, as unpredictable as the advent of AI, I look at it as the regulations really being a crawl, walk, run approach. Really, we don't know what we don't know about it yet, and regulations are merely there to help us frame our steady progress, and perhaps they need to be looked at on a regular basis in order to support the innovation that I think people feel is an important part of the tool itself. But however, I think we don't know where this is all going, and so I think regulations end up becoming, at least in these initial stages, a speed bump, which allows us to slow the car down or whatever vehicle you're driving and get over that bump and then understand what you perhaps may not have understood prior, and then maybe change or amend as necessary to accommodate for future growth, if you will, once the issues have been addressed.
Kat, did you have one as well?
Yeah, I think just, building off of what everyone else has said a little bit here. I think right now we don't want too much regulation, because I do think some of our applications, I mean, maybe if we think from just a robotic or scientific exploration, right? Loss of life, probably, way limited than, say, like a Waymo self-driving car in the United States. But I think once we start, and if we're actually taking these same systems and bringing them into a human exploration approach, I think that's where we do want to really examine and make sure that we are trusting the systems that we've been using. So I do think that too much regulation up front, I think, will stifle innovation. I think there are some guidelines that can be developed, and we can look at current regulation in other AI uses, but I think it could detriment the exploration objectives if we get too restricted too fast.
No, but not to restrict it too fast, but even robotic mission may be dangerous.
Yes, of course.
So for sure we need some regulations since the very beginning. Not too many, yeah. And in any case, to slow down the pace that is under the eyes of everybody, for me is impossible. I mean, it's everywhere. You cannot talk at home that you have an automatic system that, is listening to you, putting on music, almost serving dinner. So for sure, we are already in a different universe. We need to be conscious and not to allow the machine to tell you what to think and, this critical capability.
But if it helps us pick what's for dinner, that might
Yeah.
make a lot of dates easier.
May I give a positive cut? Because we have been talking about risky stuff until now, but I see a good use of AI in space. May I?
Yeah.
Give this positive cut? I
Yeah.
need it. No, I need it because I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned that the speed is not human dimension, but we are smart, so we'll find a way. But for sure, AI can be super helpful, for example, to deal with all this data that we've been collecting in the last tens of years. We keep sending satellites in orbit.
Yes.
That provide back huge amount of data that stand there. Nobody, I don't want to say that nobody is using any of this data, but a very little part of them.
Exactly.
So I think that can be a super helpful use. For example, in Torino, we a few years ago, we contributed to launch this beautiful Euclid science mission that is collecting every day 100 gigabytes of information. We don't have enough people, enough scientists to dig into those data and to, how can I say, tell us how beautiful is the universe.
Right.
So that is a good use,
That's
for
a great
example.
point. I mean, AI thrives on data and space.
Data handling.
Yes.
Also, without talking about Euclid, but we can talk about remote sensing satellites. So, for a good use, to better understand and deal with our planet resources, water, any. You mentioned one. So, this is a nice fellow that I like to have beside me.
No, it's a great value.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to comment on that, the use of data and that incredible amount we have in space? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. One of the corporate sponsors here gave a presentation yesterday, so I think it's okay to plug them. Planet was talking about how every day, I forget the exact number of how many megabytes or terabytes or petabytes of data come down every day, but they calculated that 1 day's worth of data would take a very highly skilled image analyst working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 7 years to analyze the data in 1 day. And of course, the automation tools the machine learning and artificial intelligence tools that they apply to that can analyze that in seconds, classify and categorize and find trends and hidden connections and compare with baseline imagery and historical data and all of that in seconds. And so, yeah, there's tremendous application there. And one other plug maybe, I was pulled into over the weekend. The young professionals had a workshop in program management, and one of them did a pilot study of doing progress reports and earned value reports and some of the more mundane things that program managers have to do, and how could some of that workload and task load be offloaded to AI. And they found in their pilot project some very encouraging results in terms of speed and accuracy of that kind of reporting. So again, opening up human creativity then to create the next increment of value in our space domain. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting applications out there.
No, there are. And then those seem like kind of lower risk uses, right? So we've been talking about, like life support or other things and critical mission areas. And so I'd be remiss, from the risk management committee, if not mentioning, I think regulation should often be risk-based. So depending on the application, right, you let people have a little bit more room to innovate and experiment and go like that. Very good. Another audience question. How can we enable quick decision-making by AI while still keeping us in the loop? So that gets to that issue of it moves so fast. It can do so much with so much data so quickly. How do we responsibly put checks in, but let it also give us that efficiency? Go ahead, Sean.
There's a concept of, rather than person in the loop, of person on the loop.
Yes.
So you're looking and supervising. That gives some clue, I think. The challenge there is, if you're the person who's on the loop, then how do you inform yourself in the time available to be able to make an informed decision? Just because it's a human decision doesn't necessarily mean it's a good one, and it may be, in fact, a bad decision, informed by very poor information.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the lesson from the young professional workshop is a great one. Is we want the AI to help us do our processes better. So we have processes in place for system verification, or for program reporting, or for cost evaluation, and we don't want to turn those processes over to the AI. We want to use the AI to help us do our processes better. So our processes are already there to build that confidence that we are delivering the right product. So I think that's making sure the tools are serving the process and not the other way around.
Yeah, keep it process and goal focused, right? Don't let the tool be the answer. Go ahead.
And I mean, just like any system verification, validation, right? I mean, you can build in checkpoints, and where the AI comes back and says, here's the solution, okay to go, right? And there's things that you can do there to insert the human on the loop even, and maybe sometimes in certain critical applications in the loop as a blocker or a checkpoint. I mean, this is a tool, right? And I think we're gonna have to test out, what works well, what doesn't work well, and then also make some checkpoints for decisions that the AI can make in a split second that honestly humans sometimes can, especially, just going back to my deep space, scientific background. If I've got something that's at a minimum 20 minutes communication delay, by the time I have the chance to make a decision, I already may have a loss of spacecraft. So there also is some inherent trust that this might just be the best solution, and that's what we have to live with.
Yeah. So one of the questions has raced up the upvoting here. So how can it's a good one too. How can we prevent overuse of AI and ensure it's used only where required when there's a lot of other simpler algorithms and easier ways and common other ways of doing things? If it's the hammer and everything's a nail kind of issue. Anybody want to take that on how you decide when not to use AI? Go ahead, Sean.
I don't think that there is a recipe. I never use AI. I live in a family with 2 nerds, both my husband and my son, and they use AI every day. I don't. So I truly believe that there is not a recipe Each of us has a professional role within a context, especially in space. Obviously, we need to work in teams. And so there will be somebody in the team that will use AI to run structural analysis, another one that will use AI to do the thermal verification or whatever.
Yeah.
But the team will still remain there to take decision according to the processes
Right.
that we all know. I would say that the first smell, the first assessment has to be from you, I mean, from us. And then again, as you
Right.
use a computer to ease your life and not to make all these calculations by hand.
Yeah. And a lot of this has to do with the resources, right? And we've used
Yeah.
AI as a very general term. And I wanted to do that in this panel because there's too many panels that try to define AI before they start. I think we're past that for most people. But, we've often been talking about generative AI and the latest type of maybe even multimodal large language models. But there's a lot of other different types of machine learning, deep learning. It's actually also a choice of which type of AI to use and when to use an edge model, and a lot of that has to do with the resources, right? The energy use, the amount of time you have, how much you do need to trust it, how much testing it's had. So I think, yes, there's a decision on whether you use AI or not, but then there's an incredible decision on how you apply artificial intelligence. But go ahead, Kat.
And I think maybe just wrapping it back into that kind of the regulation side where, defining some boundaries, but maybe not too much is, like any other time we build in new technology, right? And even across industry is, having committees and having, some body that helps in that advisory capacity, right? So, your company or your agency bringing together those experts that can maybe help guide some of the use and maybe slow it down where it's needed. And also help you focus on where might be the best spot to use that, right? Because when you're designing a system, when you're building a mission, everything's about the most efficient use of efficiency and safety, right? We only have so many dollars in exploration, right? So balancing that, use your experts.
Go ahead, Sean.
I'll provide a very space-specific example of the challenges of using AI. Is space launch safety, flight termination systems. My company, we do a lot of work in that related area. I've yet to see anyone seriously propose the use of AI to drive a flight termination system. Normally the arguments between some form of automated onboard system done the classical way versus a ground-based human pushing a big red button. But no serious consideration that I've seen of AI and flight termination systems. When we can skin that cat, AI will have arrived in space, I think.
Yeah, great question. It's a great question as well. So try to do a final question here on, we've talked a lot about, and you hear a lot about in the news about how AI is going to speed up development and production and current, automates current processes. But what about opening up entirely new solutions? What about actually aiding creativity? So are there examples of AI discovery, creativity in space science, security, or business, where it's not just helping what we know, but it's actually saying, you look at the result and you go, wow, that actually delighted me, as you would with like a really bright new employee?
I learn from my son that AI can only do what you taught AI to do. So if the teacher, the human being teacher, is a creative person, maybe. But otherwise, I don't think that AI can come up with, brilliant new ideas.
I'll challenge
You
that a little
pressed
bit.
it.
Yeah,
Good. I
we
like
would
it.
have a little controversy.
Good.
Yeah, I think, I fundamentally agree with you, but I think maybe we'll have some unexpected outcomes from that, and maybe in areas that are I hate to say mundane, but things like networking or cybersecurity, things that we take for granted. Having access to all of the data and doing all that, there could be fundamental breakthroughs in how we treat those kinds of things. Or likewise, missions and capability areas that are on the fringe that we've sort of dreamed about for a while. Sean mentioned quantum computing in space, or space solar power, or some of these things that have been continually are 20 years away. 20 years ago it was 20 years away, and today it's 20 years away.
No, but solar power
and
is
so,
not
but maybe and maybe AI can help accelerate
but
some
it's
of
not,
these
it's
timelines.
not, how can I say, a creative function.
Right.
Is an operation.
But we can
yet.
creatively bring it into use
Yes,
much faster.
but it has to
That's
come
where
from the human
that's
being.
maybe the difference.
Yes, Bruce. In that case, I accept.
Okay.
No, but for example,
We can fight more later.
no.
All right. Well, I'm glad we did get a little controversy, and maybe next time we'll have an AI on the panel to creatively
No
challenge
way.
us
No
all as
way.
well. All right, with that, please help me thank the panel.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.